All right, so I've committed to doing two hand reading two spots a day for the next 30 days to try to, make it like more quicker in game. And I was going through um, I was going through my sample. I was trying to find a tough one, not so easy. I wanted to find one against a reg that had some bluffs. Um, in a spot where positions are pretty wide, like cutoff button blinds, and I found a three bet pot, big blind versus button, where I'm in the button, and the board is pretty scary for my hand. So I'm going to go through the hand reading and my thought process as well. So if you just look here, so here's the spot. So I'm in button with 6-6, and it will fold around to me. This is a standard open, of course. This session looks like I was playing nitty. Probably wasn't getting too many decent hands, and we've got a tight player in the button. So I don't know. I guess that's what, six orbits. I mean, I don't know how the action went before this hand, but probably should have been stealing a little more. This guy's a pretty high fold big blind percentage. So he also has a pretty tight three bet range, which is going to play a part in this hand. Uh, so we open 2.5x. We get a call from the small blind, and notes. I don't have a whole lot of info. Okay, looks like, yeah, small blind is calling pocket pairs, king five suited, jack 10 off. So I'm guessing this is more of a recreational player with some. I guess they're not great stats, but they're not super whaley either. Probably recreational player or new player, not sure what they're doing, and thinks those are good hands to call from the small blind. Not positionally aware, but they're going to fold, so they're not going to play a big part in this hand reading exercise. So we get down to the big blind now. Any decent player knows this is a great spot to squeeze because my range is going to be wide here. His range is going to be, if he does not have the reads that I have, like these notes here, if he just general small blind play a flat, is a lot of times they're like middling pairs, smaller pairs, and there are hands that are going to fold a lot when there's overcards on the board to C bets, and big blind is going to be in position. So this is a great squeeze spot, and if big blind gets called by small blind, it's not the end of the world. It's actually a pretty good spot. So yeah, so now what happens? Big blind ends up calling as opposed to squeezing, which is probably, I mean, any playable hand here, I think, except maybe lower pairs, maybe smaller suited connectors. I don't know. I think I would squeeze a lot here, but big blind decides to call, and we go to the flop. So the flop is queen 4-4. This is actually a very dry board. This is a great board for the initial pre-flop openers range. So this is something that, assuming that it checks to me, I should be c betting a high percentage of the time, and I should be getting a fold. Should be getting folds a high percentage of the time. Uh, I can get floated here by stuff like nines, eights, uh, all the mid pairs, flush draws, and yeah, there could be some slow played, 4x, 4-5 suited, I guess. Maybe ace four, because this player's three bet range is kind of tight, which is why I mentioned that earlier. So he doesn't have a whole lot of bluffs in his range from the looks of it, just looking at the stat there. So, yeah, so if he opted to call, he more than likely doesn't have a very strong value hand. So I should be able to get folds on a double barrel or on the flop. So The action goes check from the small blind, check from the big blind, and I bet small because I'm expecting to get a lot of folds, and yeah, I'm looking for just a pretty easy, you know, pretty cheap C bet spot. Don't want to risk too much, and then we get caught here. So the hands I had listed earlier, stuff like tens, nines, eights. This is a pretty tight player, so he would probably be flat in tens. I guess he could be mixing up three bets with tens, but tens, nines, eights, sevens, maybe even fives could continue. I mean, I would if I was in big line, I would probably continue with fives or sixes there. Pretty much everything that's not threes and twos. Generally, as a rule, I will float against somebody with a high C bet percentage or a somewhat high C bet percentage with middle pair. See what happens on the turn. So villain calls. Three of spades comes on the board, and villain checks. Now I'm taking this as an opportunity to double barrel against a middle pair that I can get to fold. So I keep my size in small quarter pot. Um, I would do this with I would do this for two reasons against something like nines, for instance, nines, eight, sevens. If I got a queen, if I got aces, if I got kings, if I, ace, queen, king, queen, whatever, and I'm looking to get value from something like nines, I'm going to bet small so they continue. But when I'm bluffing or semi bluffing or whatever you want to call this, I also want to, be able to get good odds, get good fold equity, good odds for fold equity, and yeah, so I use a small size in that scenario too. So it's kind of almost like a form of balance here. So when I bet now, villain raises. Now this looks bad for a hand like 5-6, but there's a lot of hands that could do this that aren't necessarily queen X, pocket threes. Now, 4X, queen X, pocket threes, maybe a slow played overpair, which would be pretty weird, but I mean, we'll just throw that in there anyway. That also could play the hand like this. But there's also several bluffs here, too. So there's stuff like 6-7. The main 6-7 we're looking at, us holding the spade and the diamond leaves the 6-7 of hearts. It leaves the 5-6 of hearts. Um, it leaves ace-2 of hearts. It leaves ace-3 of hearts. There's a lot of well, the 6-6 has nothing to do with ace-2 and ace-3, of course. But I'm just saying so there's a lot of draws on this board. This board isn't like soaking wet with all like the middling type draws, but this board still has some draws, and it has draws, especially from hands that the big blind may flop three ways. So this necessarily isn't the end of the world when we see this raise. Um, if there was like another overcard on the board, I may give the raise some more credit. Not necessarily give him more credit, but I'm more likely to fold because just there's more hands that beat me. But right now, I can find plenty of bluffs. So let's try to range this player. So that's the whole purpose of this exercise. So let's go back to pre-flop. Uh, sorry. So with this player having a 5% three bet range, I'm just going to show you like what 5% the top 5% of hands looks like. So according to Flopzilla, this is the top 5% of hands here. Now I want to make some adjustments with this. So multi-way with a squeeze opportunity, I believe this is the type of stuff you're going to see three bet. So I'm going to mark all the stuff that's not three betting actually. But I think jacks through aces are going to three bet. Probably ace queen, definitely ace king off. Maybe king queen suited. Uh That one may be a mix, but you know what? I'll just put it in the flatten range for now. But I think that may be a mix. And I believe hands like these, I'll even put ace jack in the flatting range as well. kind of like a trap hand, and we'll say queens, kings, aces, ace queen suited, ace king suited, and ace king and ace queen off are going to 3 bet. Um, so now what calls? I think all these hands calls. This player's kind of tight, so I want to take king seven, king eight suited. I'll take queen eight suited out as well. Definitely put in all the connectors, suited gappers down to, let's say 7-5. Actually, no, I'll go 6-4. So yeah, I think this is a reasonable range here for a tight player calling two players in the big blind. It gives them a lot of decent implied odds hands. Um, yeah, I think I like that range. Let me see. I almost will put ace. Nah, I'll leave ace jack out of the 3 bet range. So yeah, so this is the range I'm gonna put them on. Now here's the most important thing when you're doing this type of exercise. There's going to be times where you are going to be dead wrong. Player's going to be just playing like out of character, or it's going to be an unknown, and what you get to showdown with compared to what you do in the exercise is going to be completely different. But the more you can interlock this into your brain to know to do this, the more times you're going to be right than you are going to be wrong. So there's a whole lot of value in understanding how to do this. So yeah, so this is the type of range I'm thinking, and then we get to the board, and I could do multi-way, but I'm not going to do that since small blind just like folds on the flop. So we get a board of queen of hearts, four of hearts, four of clubs. So here we are. So right now on the flop, my hand is a favorite by a little more than half. I got 53% equity against that entire range. There are pre-made hands that already beat me going in, like sevens, eights, nines, tens. Uh, any queen X, which there isn't a whole lot of. I mean, there are, so top pair. There are. How do I do that? The tab. Yeah, so top pair. There are 39 combos out of 231. So I guess oh, sorry about that. So I guess a good portion of his range, I'm going to put it back to percentages. Yeah, so about 17% of his range is top pair. Um, no made hand makes up a pretty decent amount, 37%. Uh, but as far as draws go, we got 10% of his hand is draws. It's impossible to have opening and a straight draw. So, yeah, so his range gets pretty narrowed here on the flop. Um, Three of a kind. Very small portion of his hand is three of a kind. So on the flop, when he continues, I would say we can leave in most of his strongest hands. Like we can leave the three of a kind. We can leave the quads, of course. We can leave the top pair because they are going to. Top pair isn't necessarily going to raise on the flop, and top pair in this range has to worry about ace queen. So queen jack, queen 10, queen 9 are all not going to raise. So yeah, most of them are going to continue. So, and that's a big portion. That's almost 60% of his range. But now a pretty decent portion is flush draws as well. So 34. So little over a third of his range is draws too. So it's not necessarily the end of the world that he calls here. Now, when he calls and then he checks, that's a pretty good indicator. Actually, you know what? Let me back up because I'm going to put the middle hands in his range. I did not want them to get taken out. I apologize for that. So we're going to say pocket pair below top card there. Apologize. I missed that. I was doing a different hand range. I was doing different hand reading exercise before I did this one, and I had that unchecked, so I automatically did that. So there we go. So yeah, so now that this is locked in, you can see flush draws are about a quarter of his range, and then we have the top pair, we have pocket pairs below top pair, and three of a kind is a very small percentage of it. It's about 4%. So we can uncheck over pairs because there are no over pairs. Um, so then villain calls, and then we get the three of spades, which pretty much seems like a brick. And we bet out small, same thing. Um, Looking to get the cheapest fold equity possible. And again, for the sake of balance, I'm not really doing this for balance, of course. If I were doing it for balance, if I had, fours, if I had pocket threes that just hit bingo on the turn, or if I had ace queen or queens or whatever, I would bet small like this to try to get, you know, nines, eights, sevens to call. So yeah, so betting small like this doesn't necessarily expose the strength of your hand, because if you're doing it correctly, you're doing it with the very top of your range, and you're in a situation like this. If this were, say, early position versus middle position, the bet sizes could mean totally different things. But in this spot here, where ranges are wide, this bet size can be for value, or it can be for bluff, um, or it can be for thin value too. So yeah, so when we bet now, villain raises. So now when villain raises, we have to ask ourselves, what is he raising with? So is he going to be raising with queen jack? Is he going to be raising with nines? Is he going to be raising with tens? Probably not. This is very polarized. This is either a very strong hand or a draw, coming from a competent player. And if you look at his, these are c-bet stats. So he c-bets the turn 32% of the time. So it's pretty honest, but it's not necessarily for the nuts only. So now we can start removing stuff from his range. So now I want to take top pair, and I want to take pocket pair below top pair out. So when you change the range to this, actually, you know what does top pair do? See, top pair gives him a whole lot of more equity, but because I think that he would three bet ace queen, I'm not so convinced that I don't know. I'm looking at how I would play the hand. I wouldn't be raising king queen. I wouldn't be raising queen jack. So I mean, just my thoughts on it are, is there's not enough queen X, strong queen X, from this player's perspective. I don't want to call him passive. I'll call him tight aggressive. From a tight aggressive player's perspective, I don't think they would raise queen jack, queen jack suited, when they're getting bet into. Even with smaller bets, they would call down, and then they would, and they would want to get the showdown, because they still got to worry about aces, kings, ace, queen, uh, ace four suited, whatever. So I'm taking top pair, and I'm taking middle pairs out. So now it's pretty much three of a kind quads, which make up a very, small part of his range, or it's flush draw. And most of it is a flush draw. So that we're behind. We are still behind his raising range, but uh, you know, we are getting 3-1. We only need 25% to call. So this is a call here, going by the odds. So now we got the jack of clubs on the board. So hold on. My apologies. I didn't put the turn card. So yeah, I totally whiffed that. But so yeah. with the turn card, actually, our equity goes up significantly if we take the if we take the queen out, we take the middle pair out. Even when the turn card wasn't a brick, our equity was still 44%, which was a call. But now this is like a slam dunk call. Um, and here we are on the river, and on the river we got the jack of clubs. So with hand reading, you don't add hands after the fact. Like he wouldn't have rivered a full house here when the jack of clubs comes, because jacks wouldn't have raised the turn with a queen on the board. Jacks would have called. Now, if he would have called and then raised the river, then that would be a whole different scenario. Um, because then he has queen jack suited. He could have jacks floating the turn bet due to the size of the turn bet that we made. But his raise is very polarized. So here we are at the river, and we got queen jack of clubs. Now, when I narrow it down, I'm sorry. So you don't narrow it down because you have to include his bluffs. Because once we get to the river, the hand's made. So here we are. We're sitting with 68% equity, and that's assuming, our read on the hand, our read on the situation was correct. Now, let's say you believed Villain was a little more aggressive, and Villain would raise all of his top pairs on the turn. So if you include the overpairs, if you include not the overpairs, if you include the top pairs, what happened here? There we go. So top pairs. So we're going to say Villain raises top pairs, and then the three of spades comes. Now our odds aren't so great. If we go back to the raise, so it's 3 to 1, it's 25%. It's break even, I guess. If I'm understanding this correctly. So yeah, so it's a break even call, but we're probably folding almost every time on the river. So let's do it from that aspect. So Villain would raise the queen, so we mark it, and then we call, we make the break even call, we go to the river, jack of clubs comes. We are actually probably about to be significantly more behind, and the reason why is all the queen jack suited. Well, there's two combos of queen jack suited in his range, but that's going to make it, even though it's only two combos, it is going to make us that much weaker. So where's jack of clubs? So I don't know. Ironically, that gave us a little more equity, I guess. The reason why is that takes some queen combos out of his range. I guess it takes one. It takes queen of clubs, jack of clubs. So that gave us a tiny bit more equity, which, all right, I guess that makes more sense. But yeah, when he bets, huh? So I guess we still have the equity to make that call, just barely. We got 29%, and we got 29%, and we only need 23% to call. So okay, I didn't do this hand before I started this video. I kind of did this cold, which is why there were so many errors. But actually, I thought that this was going to be a fold on this river bet, but this is a slightly profitable call. Now, when something is profitable, it doesn't mean you have to do it 100% of the time, of course. Um, the reason why you do these hand reading exercises is because against decent players like this player here, who I left his name anonymous. But yeah, against a decent player like this, the you got to have a slight edge in these spots. You got to be able to do this on the table. Now, if I would after doing this scenario here, I'm probably going to remember 10, 15% of it. And if I get into the spot on the table again, I may not make this call remembering I had, 6% more equity than needed. But doing this repetitively, you, there will be a universal feel for it. So when you get to a situation like this, you tell yourself, like, okay, I got an under pair, but he could have this many flush draws in his range, and if he does, this is a break even call. And it's kind of that exposure to the whole overall situation that makes you a better player. So we get to the river, jack of clubs. Now, going back to my original thinking that he would not raise, uh, raise the turn with the top pair. So let me get rid of the river card. I'm going to take top pair out, and then yeah, our equity goes up, and then we do the jack of clubs for the river card. And yeah, this is a slam dunk call. We only need 33% equity. And if we take top pair out of his range, we have 68% equity. So this is a call all day. So, and another thing from this is boards don't necessarily have to be as scary, because you have pocket six and you see an overcard, and your first thought on it is, oh my god, my sixes are beat, and I have to fold just because you get some aggression. But no, it's these exercises that will tell you, what you should do mathematically. This is all a mathematical decision. Every time you open a hand, it's almost like you're making a bet on that hand, or you're making an investment in that hand, and you have to figure out, is this a smart investment, and this is how you figure that out. So yeah, I was doing some hand reading exercises. I wanted to do one for the twist just to get some material up here, and probably 7:25, probably like within an hour, I'll get some. I'm gonna get some tables open. I got a format set up for 4 tables, and we'll get them fired up, and yeah, we'll play some poker. So, all right, I appreciate the views. Please let others know about me if you can pass it along, to check out my Twitch channel. I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 50 subscribers. So, yeah, all right. Thanks a lot.